How difficult is Chinese? So this is probably a video a few people have looked forward to because it is Chinese after all. It is meant to be the hardest language, but I just wanted to obviously it's a difficult language, there's no surprise there. This is more going to be talking about why it's difficult and also the things that make it not as difficult as people think. So, a little bit about Mandarin just to begin with. Mandarin is the second most spoken language in the world. There is actually, people like to argue over whether English or Mandarin is spoken more. Generally, it's considered English is spoken a little bit more, but Mandarin has 1.3 billion speakers across China, Taiwan, and Singapore are the three countries that speak it, but there's 1.3 billion speakers, I believe, throughout the world. Mandarin is also the most spoken native language, so of people who grow up speaking it natively, Mandarin is actually spoken more than English. English is learnt a lot as a second language because of how important it is. Like, for example, it's a language of space, pilots need to know it, that kind of thing. And obviously, it's just English, it's extremely important. But yeah, Mandarin is also a tonal language, so the tone of how you say things, we'll talk about that a bit later, is a critical element of conveying meaning. So the way you pronounce certain phonemes as far as tone goes can completely alter the meaning, not even a little bit. It can change the whole meaning of the word. So yeah, that can be kind of interesting, but we'll talk about that more in the what makes Mandarin difficult or easy kind of slide. Mandarin is also written logographically, so what logographically means is, I kind of have to explain what an alphabet first. So what we have in English, for example, ABC, the whole alphabet, the symbols in an alphabet are for phonemes. So phonemes are basically sounds. So obviously you've got A for A, B for B. They each represent a sound, and obviously there's a little bit of crossover, like C can be K or S, and then they can be combined, like S and H can make sh, T and H can make th, and there's also diphthongs, which is where you combine vowels, so A and E together can make like an A, O and U can make like an ow, that kind of thing. So obviously there's not just 26 sounds in the English language, because you've got like sh, th, ch, but the alphabet basically denotes phonemes, and then certain combinations can make different other things. And there's obviously a little bit of difference, there's exceptions, that kind of thing, but that's what an alphabet is. In what Chinese has with a logographic set of characters is each symbol denotes kind of either a word or a word part. So each kind of letter in Chinese is a whole word on its own, if you think about it that way. And you can also combine these letters to make a bigger word. So an example of this, I think I've got it later, but I'll just say it now. The Chinese symbol for pattern and horse, when combined, makes zebra. So as you can see, the word zebra in Chinese is combined by putting pattern and horse. You can kind of see how those ideas go together, and it makes zebra. I'll have to explain this more in a later one, but that's basically how a logographic system of characters works. Mandarin is also a Sinitic language of the Sino-Tibetan language family, so you could also say it's a Chinese language, because there's more than one Chinese language, but Mandarin is the most spoken. And what that means is it has significant linguistic differences from English. It's not part of the Indo-European language family, obviously, so it's not even remotely related to English. So yeah, it is going to be quite challenging. Surprise. How difficult is it? So Mandarin is considered to be an exceptionally difficult language. A lot of people think it's the hardest. That's up to you. It is very difficult from what I've read. So there's a few reasons why this is the case. Obviously, you've got the writing system. So Mandarin's writing system uses about 50,000 characters, as opposed to English, which uses 26. So that's a lot of letters to have to know to write Mandarin, but that's not entirely accurate because you don't know that comparing letters in Mandarin to letters in English isn't really fair. It's more fair to compare letters to words, but that's also kind of not fair. Letters in Mandarin are kind of like between letters in English and words in English, because some of them are words on their own, others have to be combined together to make a compound word. So although there are 50,000 letters, or characters as you would say, letters are of an alphabet, you would say that you would use characters for Mandarin's writing system. Although there's 50,000, an educated native will only know around 8,000 allegedly, and 2,000 to 3,000 are required for general reading. I have heard that probably 4 or 5 is better to read something properly, but 2,000 to 3,000 you can read, like in newspapers and stuff, with that knowledge of characters. So the writing system also has absolutely no visual similarity to English. That's not a surprise either. There's nothing that looks like anything in English. So yeah, it's going to be quite unfamiliar to learn that kind of way of writing, and given its operational differences, it is challenging for native English speakers to kind of write like they do in Mandarin. But yeah, that is going to be quite difficult just off the bat. Tonal as well. So Mandarin uses 4 tones: flat, rising, dipping, and falling. What I mean by that is it's like kind of the pitch you say sounds at. So I'm not going to claim I don't speak Mandarin. For the record, I don't really know any Mandarin. The only stuff I know is some stuff about Mandarin, like kind of these things, but I don't actually know any Mandarin. I might learn it because one of my friends does speak it fluently. He's from Taiwan. But yeah, the four tones in Mandarin are the pitch you say sounds at. So, for example, like flat tone is where you have a consistent pitch across. Rising is where it starts kind of medium and gets higher. Dipping is where it starts at the top, goes down a bit in pitch and rises back up. Falling is starts at the top and goes to the bottom. And there's also a fifth tone, which is no tone, basically. And that can change the meaning of words. So if you know a little bit about Chinese, you've probably heard of the ma thing. So ma in Chinese can mean four different things depending on the tone. I believe it can mean mother, hemp, horse, or scold, depending on which tone you use, not necessarily in that order that I've got them written there. But yeah, that is kind of how the tone in Mandarin impacts meaning. It can completely change the meaning of words. And yeah, there is a bit of a meme about people going to China who aren't native speakers and completely messing up things. Whether or not that's true, I don't know if you'd actually get the shit beaten out of you for messing up things. I'm pretty sure, I know in English, for example, when people mess things up, nobody really cares that much. So I presume it's not that bad. But yeah, it could be difficult to convey meaning then if there's things that specific that you're not used to as an English speaker. So yeah, there are also plenty of other things to consider, like dialects. Chinese is extremely dialectical. It's spoken differently in different parts. There's a lack of cognates, obviously. That's a two-way street with English. There just aren't that many words that are similar. And then general unfamiliarity. Obviously, as I said before, it's not really related to English at all. So yeah, Mandarin Chinese is quite a difficult language for English speakers to learn. But a little bit out of character for talking about a language so hard, I did kind of want to talk about some things that make Mandarin not as difficult as you'd think. So a lot of people like to say it's the hardest thing. That's true, but I just wanted to kind of go through these things to show that there are some things about Mandarin that are actually easy. So Mandarin has no verb conjugation at all. What I mean by verb conjugation is when you say I eat but he eats, you chuck an S on the end, the verb changes a little bit, that kind of thing. Mandarin doesn't do that with any verb. So instead of saying eat, eats, or eating, ate, that kind of thing, they just they use extra words to explain. So like you could say I eat yesterday instead of I ate. They just use extra words to explain what happened instead of actually changing the verb, which can actually be quite easy, I've heard. So Mandarin also uses no plurals. You don't say, there's no word for multiple of a thing. Like if you're going to say tree or trees, they just don't have the plural word. There's just one word, which might sound a bit weird, but I've seen that in other languages. You just kind of get used to it. There's numbers, days, and months are very logical. Allegedly, they build off each other. And if you know how to count to 10 in Japanese, I believe the written form is the same as Mandarin, I think. Compound words are also very logical. So as I said before, compound words are words where it's more than one symbol makes the word. But the symbols, usually individually, I believe, are their own words. You just put them together to make a new word, and it's usually quite logical. So, for example, the word for zebra is just the symbol for pattern and horse. So it's kind of easy to remember because, pattern, horse. And yeah, there's probably plenty of other examples like where I can't name a specific one, but like if you have a word, for example, the two or multiple symbols in it will kind of like make sense. Like if it's something that involves two different things, those two different things might be the individual symbols, and then together they make that word, if that kind of makes sense. So yeah, it is kind of logical in that sense. Should you learn Mandarin? Yes, Mandarin is, after English, in my opinion, the most important language in the world. It is used diplomatically, it's used for trade, business, and it's one of the fastest growing languages on the planet, particularly with, what have I written? Particularly, I'm assuming I meant something with China's economy, because of how important it is, but yeah. Mandarin is an extremely important language, and if you're going to learn a difficult language, be it now or in the long term, there's definitely the way, Mandarin is definitely going to be important for you to learn. I do plan on learning it eventually. I'm going to learn the Romance languages after I finish Russian, but it's on my list. I want to learn Mandarin, Arabic, and then probably Hindi as well, long term, and then probably like Japanese as well. So it's definitely around there. I will get to it eventually. But yeah, it's probably not recommended for beginners as a first language because it is really, really difficult. But by all means, if you want to learn it or you need to learn it for whatever reason, it can be done. Plenty of people have done it. Learning Mandarin will allow you many opportunities for travel, work, and leisure that you wouldn't otherwise get in life, particularly how fast China is growing and how influential its politics are. So yeah, everyone knows how big China is as a country. It's going to be important to know Mandarin. There's going to be plenty of opportunities that spring up if you can speak Mandarin. So yeah, no one would really tell you it's a bad idea to learn Mandarin. It's obviously going to be extremely important. And yeah, particularly for native English speakers as well, being able to speak Mandarin, as far as languages go, it's one of the languages that will blow a native speaker's mind. If you speak it, like if you speak French in front of a French person, they generally don't, they're not that impressed, in my experience of seeing it happen in person. And oftentimes, actually, no, I'm not going to say oftentimes they'll correct you because it depends on the person. But yeah, if you can speak even not even perfect Mandarin in front of someone who is Chinese, or like my friend who's from Taiwan, yeah, it generally does blow their mind because it's so difficult and they just don't expect you to be able to do it. So yeah, it would gain instant respect if you can speak Mandarin. There's no one who wouldn't think that was cool. That would have someone glancing twice at your resume if you wrote it there. Yeah. Someone should do that as an experiment, even if they don't speak Mandarin. Just put that on their resume and see if it gets brought up in the interview. I guarantee you the person doing the interview, if they saw you spoke Mandarin on your resume and you were not from China, they would probably have some questions to ask about that. So, yeah, that's just what I think. Interesting facts. Chinese Mandarin is one of the oldest languages. So the characters were first seen in 1250 BC, which is over 3,000 years ago. There's two sets of characters as well, traditional and simplified. You've probably seen that before. Traditional characters were a bit more complicated and they've been used for ages, whereas the simplified ones were introduced in the 1900s during Mao Zedong's time. Mandarin also uses no articles. I probably could have put that in the what makes it easy section, but articles are basically words like and the. So instead of saying we go to the moon, you would just say we go moon. The equivalent of that, obviously, you might need to change some things around to actually put it into Mandarin, but they remove the articles. There's also no grammatical gender, which is like English basically, but unlike many European languages you'd have to learn. Chinese was originally written top to bottom in columns, which were laid out from right to left, which is really strange from an English perspective, but not anymore. So yeah, those are just a few interesting facts about Mandarin. Overall, it's an extremely important language that can be both a nightmare to learn and a serious reward for anyone looking to learn it. There's obviously a lot of benefits in doing that. But yeah, if you do want to learn Mandarin, I definitely recommend you do. It's obviously going to be a hard slog, but it is doable, and I believe in you. If you are looking to learn a language as well, I've got a link in the description to my website, Head of State Language Learning. I've had to take a break from it the last week from updating it because I've been sick, one, and then I've had a few other things I need to do too, but I'm going to keep working on it now. It is currently not completely working in the languages section, so you can't actually use it yet, but just know if you're going to complain and say, why isn't it working properly? One, it's free, so shut up, and two, I'm working my ass off on it, so I will have it ready for you as soon as I can. But yeah, when it is working, it's going to have all of the resources you need for every language. Some of them I've used, others I'm just finding for you because I haven't actually learned that language. But yeah, I would appreciate if you guys could check it out and like and subscribe, please, because it does help the channel. We're closing in on 100 subscribers as well, and I think I've mentioned this in a previous video. I'm going to do a Q&A for 100 subscribers, so if you wanted to comment a question, anything about language learning, or about me, or the channel, or anything like that, I'm happy to answer it. Just like write in the comment you want me to answer it in my Q&A, and I will no doubt talk about it then. So yeah, thank you for watching, and yeah, I hope you enjoyed. Thank you.